Crikey. What are you guys up to? Let me get my chat open here. Can everybody hear me? Give me a 1 if you can hear me, just so I know that we are good to go. Testing 1, 2. Oh, you guys are on. Okay. You guys are over on the. You guys want to do Skype again? All right. Give me a 1 in Skype if you guys can hear me. Because Russ is saying he can't hear me, so I don't know what's going on. Okay, excellent. Sounds like you guys can hear me. It could be a very quiet call since I'm just talking to myself. So, how's everything? How's everybody doing today? Everybody doing good? Yeah, no problem. I know it's been I guess I was out in Perth. I was sick for about a little bit over a week. Good times. But it's good to be back in the States, and at least I'm not sick anymore, so that's kind of what we got going on. So we're going to do a little bit of a mix between two things today. We're going to go through how to teach you how to do disavowing for websites and kind of the process that I do. So generally when you use traffic to rank stuff, in 3 weeks, typically if I don't see any movement on the job, you got a panda, right? And hopefully you guys are figuring out how to untangle or maybe de-optimize the site to try and get those websites fixed. And that's kind of what we've been doing. And the other thing is, if I've done that and there's still no movement, and I'm saying like no keyword rankings anywhere, it's usually a penguin. Penguins are a pain in the butt because they're link-based penalties. So there's two things to kind of look for. Let me get a handy dandy notepad open here. I will share my screen in a moment. Yes, I think I'm recording. Well, I don't know if you guys remember back in the day, but I did do a Penguin Recovery live on one of the OMG webinars. Just by doing the same thing. I understand Penguin and Panda way better now than back then, but my process is very similar. So some things to kind of think of. Let's see. Let me find my share screen. Apologize for the slowness today. All right. Why isn't it sharing? Why doesn't it let you pick which one to do? So obnoxious. What screen are you guys seeing? Okay. Can you see a notepad now?
Jeez, that's fine.
Okay. All right. There we go. Are you on here, Russ?
Oh yeah, I mean theoretically.
Well, that's good.
Hello, everyone. Sorry about that. Welcome, welcome.
Yeah, so there's some things that I like to look at here, right? So links aren't, so people get link-based penalties backwards, right? So a lot of times people consider anchor text as being a penguin penalty. Based on that, would you guys say that's true or false? Would your anchor text fall under panda or penguin? Good. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, it would fall under panda, right? Because they're titles, right? You're pointing titles to those pages. So really, when we talk about penguin, we're talking about neighborhoods, right? Footprints. So it's not necessarily what the anchor text is. It's like, where are those IPs coming from, right? So when I think of penguin, you're looking at IP or footprint based penalties, which is why, it's the penalty filter that starts with P. Yeah, that's very true. But also panda starts with P, so um, but essentially this is all I'm looking for. And one of my favorite tools that I've always used since it came out was the link research tools. Now, this is not a cheap tool, um, but let me see if I can move some of the stuff out of the way. I don't think you guys can see that, but I can. So this is so basically we can kind of go from the start with this, right? So there's two things that I like to do, um, which is I like to go get the links from the source, right? So one of the things I'll do is I'll go to the Google Search Console, right? And you can just go log in. I like to use this for a whole lot of different things, but let's say we're going to go and look at one of these sites, right? So um, you can go down here to links on the bottom left. Hopefully this is big enough for you guys to see. You can zoom in a little bit. So you go to links down here on the bottom left. And top linking sites is one of the things that I like to go get, right? So I'll export this and usually just put it in an Excel file or CSV, just so I have a list of sites that Google knows about that we can check, right? So I'll download that list, and then this is what I'll use as part of my check when I'm doing a review. So from there, once I have this list of sites, I mean, you guys can use other stuff like Ahrefs and things like that if you want to check it too, but I always pull Google Search Console because that's what, that comes from Google. So if they know about the link, then, sometimes you build links and they don't index or don't get picked up and stuff. And so if it's on that list, I usually don't worry about it typically. Um, so once I have that, then let's see if I just go in and open up a different page before we go back to that. So you basically just go in a new project and you can create whatever it is. Does anybody want me to start one for them? I won't be able to finish it, but we could start it. Any website you want me to start an analysis for this?
Okay. Let's see.
So I'm just kind of walking you through um, kind of where I start. Well, Doctor to Help we already have. We've already done one for that.
Yeah.
So give me one that you guys know we haven't done. Like typically we don't go into the penguin recovery unless it's necessary. Usually I don't worry about it, TJ, if I don't see that in the list in the Google Search Console, chances are that Google's either not even counting it or it can't hurt you. Now, it doesn't mean if it's an index page and you've done bad Panda titles, then that can be a concern there. But you can also kind of circumvent some of that using 301s. So we can use this one. Okay, so here, let's go run a site. And you've even got your linking sites there too. Um, so we'll take this site, and it's pretty simple to get started on it, right? You go up and you do a new project, and you just put in your destination, you hit save or call it whatever you want. And I like to do a complete crawl on it. So you can specify like URLs and stuff if you want to just look at a specific area of your site if you know it's got a lot of links, because um, you can only do about 6 million a month for checks on this plan that I have. But on sites like Hearst and stuff that I've been auditing, like they have like millions, like they have like 30 million and stuff like that. Like it's just insanity. So but generally, most of your domains you'll have to analyze will just be like this. So then you just do perform complete crawl is usually what I do. You'll hit next. You can upload a disavow file if you already have one in your list, right? Um, so you can go into your disavow tool. You can go down into it. So when you're in here, you can go into ones that you may or may not have done. Right, I don't know if I've done any for here, but if you have some here, you usually can download it if you've done it before. So you can take that list that you've done, but this is how you would upload the disavow once we get to the end. But I'll keep that open for now. So um, so we would start a project. So I'm just going to say no, I don't have one in this case. You just hit next. Would you like to save hours in manual classification, right? Like this part right here is going to be more based on your Panda recovery, not necessarily Penguin, right? But you could do this if you want to kind of sort by anchor text. But generally, when I'm doing this, I'm only looking at, do we have footprints? So I usually skip this step. Then you want to calculate um, no follow link risk. I usually leave this as yes. You don't really have to, because if it's not indexed, it shouldn't hurt you, but I just include it anyway, just because, who really knows the answer to that question other than Google? So even if it's no indexed, I will still check it and make sure it's not coming from some crazy place. You can connect this to your search console. I don't generally do this because I don't have access typically to everybody's site. So I'm just going to skip this and hit next. And then you can um, you can upload other backlinks and things that you have if you want. But in this case, I don't have a list for that. So we're just going to hit next. So if you hit yes, then you'll be able to upload your links from a tool or something else where you've pulled it, and that can save you crawl budget when you're using this tool. Would you like to fine tune link detox? I just leave this as yes. Next. And then no, it is not a porn site or a gambling site or a malware site. And then you have it in here. It's got all the things that you chose, and I just hit start crawl. Right. So this is kind of how you get started using this, and this will, depending on how many links it has, like sometimes, I usually just let it run and come back the next day and start looking at it from there. Any questions so far? Can being a shared hosting affect the neighborhood portion of the penalty? Yes.
Looks like there are a couple questions. Can you see them?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, but shared hosting can be affected. Like you don't really know what your neighbors are. It's kind of like when we live in our neighborhoods now. You could have a psychopath 2 doors down and not even know it. Maybe he's a serial killer. Um, but yeah, typically I like to stick to dedicated hosting and things. If you're doing like backlinking and stuff like that. But generally, I don't do as many backlinks as I used to back in the day. Um, I really love the days of GSA when you could just gat crap and make it rank. Not saying that still can't be done, but there's a lot of work and everything with running and managing those lists. Um, so once you get through that and that'll complete, then it'll show up in your project list and it has this breakdown here, right? So you can kind of see based on the average detox risk, this will give you kind of a breakdown of what's going on with these in particular. So we have about 18,000 on this one that I need to review. So generally I just click on that to go to the link list. Now, I used to like Classic pretty good, but now I've figured out how to use this on the new thing, and I think it's pretty slick. Um, you don't really have to remember all of the filters from the list that I used to run. Now, basically, we're not looking at anything that is, I don't care about anchor text in this realm. Maybe you check that after you get rid of all the bad stuff, but generally I ignore it. Because if you have anchors that are coming into a page that maybe you use keyword anchors, like you can 301 those over to a keyword page, right? So, um, if you were trying to go after face scrub, for instance, and you gatted some page that it wasn't optimized for that, and that title doesn't line up with that anymore, you can 301 that to a page that lines up more with that optimization for those anchors. Um, just depends on how many backlinks have been built. And honestly, some of the pages with backlinks involved usually have a crap ton of impressions, which high impressions are okay if your click-through rate is there, but generally you don't want super high impressions with low click rate because you can't rank. So, um, so anyways, how I go through and check this is pretty easy, right? So up here, you'll click on filter, and I have to do this anyway for a client, so I thought we'd just do it on here. So filter, I'm going to add rule, and I'm not going to go after anchor. You can do that, and I can identify, panda ones that you're doing, but in this case, we're just trying to get rid of all the junk, right? So you do link detox rules, and now they've broken down a list of all the ones that you have within this group of links. So before you had to go through and kind of check mark each one and you'd have to filter for the ones on the list, but this makes it a lot easier now, right? So Tox 1, Tox 2, Tox 3 are automatically gone, right? So I'm going to click that and I'm just looking for anything that says possible link network, because if this tool can pick it up, then Google is. So basically just come through link network, suspicious 4, no good. That's usually a panda penalty. Suspicious 7, link network. 23 is a link network. And, I'm not worried about links from weak domains. I don't really care about link velocity going to some other page on tier 2 that's not going to impact a penguin, right? In fact, if anything, that'll probably help you rank. You don't really care about a young domain, above average risk. Sometimes you can look at some of the suspicious 20s. I know 20 used to be on my list, so I'm just going to select it on here. And if you guys want, I could provide you with the list that I've always used to disavow. Give that to Russ or Carrie to put into the group, or maybe I'll just drop it in the chat if you guys ever need it. So then from there, you just hit apply, right? So now we've filtered for all of those things that have a toxic link based on neighborhoods, essentially. You can break this out and look at more specifics on different IPs. Like sometimes it's from using the same Google Analytics code on all your backlink sites. You know, anything that kind of shows that it's coming from one place is generally what we're trying to flush out. So from here, it's very easy to get a disavow file. I can just come up to here and we're going to do a disavow. Usually do root domain because I don't really want any of these applying to it. And then that's it. That's how you filter under bulk actions. So now when you come over to here, if I remember right, you could go into the home page again. Maybe it's under link profile. Not exactly sure where it went. It usually shows up right here. Oh, maybe it didn't take my disavow there. Oh no, this is the other project. That's why it's not showing up. So we can go through this too if you want the disavow. Do you want the disavow on this, PJ? Okay.
That would be a
So
yes.
we'll take this real quick. I know this is kind of silly and dumb, but I figure you guys would want to learn, how to do it. So if we take these, we're just going to do the same process. I'm just going to go up and do filter, add rule, link detox rules. We're just going to go gut all of the ones that are no bueno. Apply it, get those messages off my screen. We're going to do bulk actions and going to disavow to the root domain. Apply. So now we should be able to go over and see it in the list over here. And here's your file. You just download it. It'll give you a warning. Say don't do that. And there's your disavow file. So from here, basically what you do is you disavow that, and you can give it some time, right? Usually can wait like a week or whatever. And essentially what you have to do once you get that uploaded and disavowed in your tool is you need to reping those links, right? So you can put it back through a linking indexer, but you want to go back to all the links that you disavowed, right? And you want to basically, you're going to run all these back through an indexer, right? So in order for the penalty to release, you disavow first, you give Google time to chunk it down, and then you need Google to go back to this link so that it registers to Google that you've disavowed it. And then that's what releases the penalty, right? So you can use Link Detox Boost on this to do this. It's another tool you can pay for on there, or you can just literally take it and go to like Index Me Now or something like that, and that's what causes the penalty to release. So it's a good thing to know. And that's how I was able to do that live on that one webinar. So how long does it take for a penalty to release is probably the next question. It depends, right? Like, um, how many links are you having to get repinged and recrawled by Google could take some time. But generally, after you do that, you're going to wait anywhere between 2 and 3 weeks after that to see the release. So that's kind of the process of how you do a penguin recovery. Yeah, you could use speed links too. I use that sometimes as well. But I like index me now. Make sure that crap gets picked up. Um, Too far off topic. Um, what do you mean by off topic? Like, give me more what you're thinking there. Well, you can go to, I mean, one of the things you can do is go and look for the anchors. I don't know how many we disavowed in that swoop. Um, it's hard to say. Like, I'm just literally trying to get rid of, the ones that have been disavowed, right? So we go and look, you have negative link velocity trends. So that's usually a sign of, tier two backlinking to this backlink, which is typical for like SEOs, right? So, um, you know, overall, it's not like super, I mean, I would say they're not bad links from a strength perspective that you've gotten. But obviously the neighborhoods and the IPs, there's a footprint on these somewhere that this tool picks up that you just have to get rid of. Because if this tool picks it up, Google can just see it, right? So it looks like we've disavowed quite a few. Let's see how many we got here. So we know we have at least 200. Yeah, you're just probably about 260 is my guess. About 260 links disavowed there. So yeah, you just want to, that's basically how you clean it up. So that's not too bad. Um, can it hurt the centroid? That's something that is, when you talk about the Euclidean cluster model that Google uses, um, how do they determine what the centroid is for a site, right? So I had this question out when I was in Perth. Typically, a site is themed, right? So when we think of a centroid, it is a focal point of that website, right? So for Jimmy Kelley Digital, you're looking at SEO probably as a centroid. And then there's going to be supporting documents that they kind of do with that kind of points to SEO being the main theme of that website. They determine the centroid typically by traffic, right? So in the supporting documents that surround that centroid. But sometimes people want to branch out and do other things on a website, right? Like if you have a multi-service website, it might do well for plumber, but then you try to add electrician and it just doesn't respond. It's just because the traffic has not strengthened the centroid for the electrician silo of however you optimize that, right? So Google's that's how they pick the centroids for different um, websites. So when you're being compared against other ones, they're comparing the traffic of the centroids they've picked for each website, and then they compare those to what they're trying to rank, right? So it all comes down to traffic and what the relevance is for those independent, what your centroid is for your site. So um, I don't know if that makes sense or why I went on that topic, but that's what it is.
Yeah, that's fine. Makes sense.
Then I'm going to teach you guys something else. We're going to go into more specifics.
Excellent.
Are there any questions on anything so far? Oh, there's Drew. Where's our fishing trip, Drew?
Drew, you would like to party.
I'll be coming down to Florida soon. I'll give you a call. Get those pages fixed. All right, so when you upload a disavow to a root domain, why would you need to have Google recrawl it? It's not like the links are no longer on the site. That's correct, but you need Google to register it and go back to it to see that link. For whatever reason, you just have to ping it to get it to release. For a long time, I tried to just do a disavow and it doesn't work. But, it kind of makes sense because when we build a link and we want to get it indexed, we send Google to it so it registers in their system. So it's kind of the same thing. Like on old links that you built, they might have been, let's say it's a comment page, right? So at one point it's on page one of the comments, but 2-3 years later, you got hit by some penalty and now it's like on page 50, right? Google's not going to go down to that link. It may still be pointing to your site and you can go and say, I no longer want to count this link, but you have to get Google to go back to it to register that on their end after you do the disavow. There's just something about getting Google to ping it again that just releases it. Yeah, they probably do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like it took the time to get it indexed on, some site that probably wasn't important to them anyway. So I think they do it just so people aren't, I don't know if it's a protection thing for webmasters. I mean, because certainly if you disavow, I think if you disavow and wait around, I think sometimes that'll work too over a long period of time. But, um, if you're trying to do a recovery quickly, you have to go back through and get those things pinged. And so this is the list. You would just literally download this list and I would just be uploading every URL that was backlinked to after about a week after I've done the disavow. I see Paul typing something, so I'll wait on.
We see you typing, Paul, Kyle.
We haven't run this on every site just to be safe. If it's a client site, so out of the group of sites that we've had from you guys, I'd say there's 2 of them that I'm pretty sure had penguin penalties on them because if we've gone through and done the Panda and the title updates, which we're generally doing in the beginning, there's other things that can come into play too, other than just titles. Like one of the sites we had to fix not too long ago, literally every image on every single page of this website had the same keyword for the title, right? So that wasn't a Panda thing that I normally check, but it's something that was in there, right? And images and video files are the same as, it's one of the optimization points. So you have to account for that. So just something to pay attention. I generally like to do the least amount of work. So I generally try to focus on URLs and titles first, but you do have to be careful of what images are because sometimes, if you've done alt text on those images that are all the same keywords across everything, those are titles of those media files, right? So you've got to clean those up and make sure they belong to the right pages and not be repeating them in mass success. So that's something to look at from a Panda perspective too. It's not something I usually do that last because it's like the last thing I would check. Um, if I've done the title cleanup and the URL cleanup after 3 weeks and I'm still seeing like zero movement on any keywords, and I'm looking at Penguin at that point. Like there's a bad neighborhood link going there that's got bad mojo on it. So then we go through the process of doing that. So on some of these worst cases that you guys have submitted, there's some that we've gone through and done the Penguin process on, or at least started it. So yeah, yeah, it's like, it's just, one thing we're gonna do with, future Keystone orders, we've made it part of the process of just check Penguin anyway, just so we can nip as much of it in the butt as we can to start. But I generally like to not do extra work.
Yeah, we definitely try to avoid that.
Um, let's see what else. So then I had some other cool stuff I could show you guys. Any other questions on the disavow? This seems pretty simple, doesn't it? It's not too bad to do. It's pretty quick and easy. It's another service you could tack on to your agency too if you're doing client work. Like you could buy a small package and just do it as part of like a health audit. I have. I used to get paid quite a bit back in the day for site recoveries.
Oh yeah, Traffic Hospital was like all net grossing of all
Yeah.
time.
So it's like one of the sites, I, you could charge like I charged 80K on a site one time for recovery. And basically how I charge is like they have to put 50% down to do the work. And
Yeah.
then if it recovers, they pay the other 50%. But if not, then they still covered the time and everything to do it. But this tool just made it so much easier than it used to be back in the day. Um, but generally, you guys probably know now, it's like, okay, when you take on a client, you have to de-optimize the website more times than not at this point. So might as well just throw that in as an extra service.
Oh yeah.
Get paid for it. Um, so now we're going to talk about a few other things. Um, oh, that's pretty awesome, Paul. You charge that for panda removal? That's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, at least you guys have an advantage. You kind of know like what needs to be done and you can't repeat keywords. So I think it's a good advantage moving into future SEO.
Oh
So
yeah. Sorry, Daniel, I misunderstood what you were saying, but yeah, I know plenty of people who've never touched site recovery or detox for that because they're scared of it. So that's why I misunderstood your question.
yeah, it's like some people are we had
Very
a
afraid.
client once. We had a really good client that the brand was just kicking butt. This was the
Oh
ecom
yeah.
brand.
Yeah.
And
I know what you're
like
talking about.
one day all of the sales just died. And
You were like, what
talk
was it?
yeah, I knew it wasn't nothing was wrong with the system. There's nothing that we had changed that like tanked anything.
You were like,
And
Jimmy, what
talking to
did you
them,
do?
yeah, yeah, they thought it was something we did. Come to find out, they'd hired an SEO that literally disavowed every single link on their site.
Yeah. That was an e-commerce client, right? You're talking about?
Yeah. Yep.
That was
Yeah,
just
you know who
nasty.
I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
And so, anyways, that's the end of that brand. They basically lost all traffic overnight. But
I guess what I'm saying, guys, is it's completely understandable as why somebody would be afraid of disavows because it's not a neutral thing. Like even still, like you can do
yeah,
flag.
it's not neutral. Like I don't recommend disavowing everything, but it's good to go in there and clean up anything that's a possible link network. So just get rid of that crap. It's not doing them any good. Um, yeah, sometimes, I mean, Well, I don't know. It's kind of hard. It's like once you submit it,
Reavow. Now those bad links are in the
you gotta
database. And you're like,
go get
undo,
them
undo, control
recrawled,
Z.
everything. Like you could update your disavow list and then go get the other links re-pinged or re-indexed
Resubmit,
again to get them
resubmit.
back in, right? But then you're just kind of doing the same thing twice. So it's not very fun. So I do try to take
I
my
mean, you,
time with the first disavow.
I mean, it makes you wonder, Jimmy, if like if you even run it through a disavow, like those links are tagged. I mean, you can try to reindex them, but
Yeah, it
I wouldn't
generally
want
it's
them.
not easy to undo it.
Yeah. Which
That's
again,
why
back
they
to
give you a
Daniel.
warning.
Yeah, which back to Daniel, like that's why I don't recommend it for everybody. Just I think you need training. That's why the traffic hospital thing that Jimmy did even years ago was one of our most technical course we've ever done because you can still blow yourself up, and we have a crying client to validate that.
Oh yeah. So let's see. So we're gonna do um, some fun anchor text things here. Well, maybe we should just start out with 3 layers first. Let's not make it too crazy.
Okay.
Okay, so I thought this would be good practice for you guys to kind of learn how to do backlinks in different ways. And we can also add in some other. So I'm going to write this out of how you can kind of invert things, right? So when you think of domain in your centroids generally, um, Google reads this a very specific way, right? So you can take you know, you could take two folders and make it one, right? So, traditional way to do this would be supporting one centroid dash domain. I guess I could call it brand, but you know, you could write it like this, but you're breaking it into 2 points, right? So here's point one, here's point two, right? And this is like your connect the dot thing. That's how I look at it. So another way that Google reads this is how would you invert this, right? So if they're looking at this in particular, how does Google read that? Um, I don't expect you guys to know this, but right. So basically, they combine these two together. Yeah, exactly. It's in the reverse, right? So, but the trick is you have to combine these two, right? Because you're moving this one to the front. So when you don't do the dash, this is kind of how they read it. And this is going to go into more like how you use anchor text internally on the website. So some of you may be missing this on your geolocation pages when you're trying to do the anchors. So that would be a good practice.
Hmm.
Okay, so there's a missing link that some of you may have from, you've siloed out stuff from your centroid and you have your supporting document one in this instance, and you have another combo here. So how do we do an invert? How can you invert this? So we want to make an anchor from here to here. I'm going to get rid of these two in the middle so it's not confusing. So generally when we come down here, off of the city page, right, you're going to be linking to Centroid, and you probably link in supporting one as well, depending on your menu structure. right? These are your anchors going to these in particular. But then there's a categorization that happens, and what is it, right? So we have this, and we are linking to this directly. So it's going to connect this and this. But think of the way that Google reads it. I see TJ typing something. Yeah, the centroid supporting Austin, right? So there's another connection that needs to be made, right? You have one here and here, but you really also want to combine it. So you can link back up to there with either centroid supporting, or you can carry it out to centroid supporting one, right? So off of this page, you can close that gap. So you are linking to these individually, which is fine, but you can also close that gap here when you're going from Austin to here, because we're going to use the domain as, we're kind of doing the opposite, if that makes sense. So if we take that thought, right, this becomes kind of the modifier for that, right? And then this would be your placeholder, kind of like your state thing. And then you have this. So we're linking, you can link from here to here. So this is a little bit different than how we were talking about on that one webinar with the whiteboard. But I thought there's a lot of people that couldn't see the whiteboard very good. So I thought this might be good to review. So when I'm looking at this, and this is kind of, it can be a little bit confusing, right? So when you think of centroids, um, it's kind of a placeholder, right? So when you have a first level down, Google will read centroid supporting one. Yeah, there was other external linking going there too, but I kind of wanted to review this from an internal perspective. I don't usually try to teach this because it is a little confusing. So I'm not trying to confuse you guys, but I want you to think of like how search is done, um, you know, on Google, if that makes sense. And I can pull up, maybe an example would help too. And everybody's just so quiet. Are you quiet, Russ? Tell me if I go too deep here.
No, I think they're just watching.
So,
Douglas is wanting, yeah, just slow down a little bit, I guess.
so when you're here, right, like cities is a foobar in this case, but it's also a centroid, right? So when you're looking at this silo here, this would be the combo that you're after, and this would be what would go in front. So if we think about that first example, Google would read it like this, right? So if they're reading it like this, and we want to use this as a um, placeholder, right? So they have to follow the same order that you're doing uh, with how you've siloed. Yes, that's correct. So I basically want you guys to know that when you're going here, you're emphasizing what you want that to be, right? So when you're on here, it is good to link to just each page individually because that's what it is, right? That's the simplest form of doing it, but you can make it better, right? You can combine different things. So if we're on, let me just try to simplify this and not make it so confusing. So we're going to do a link from this page down to this page, right? This is fairly simple because we can specify it as Austin Centroid. You can specify it as Austin Centroid supporting one. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
this is a link that you're going from here to here, right? And we're kind of making this the new focal point, but you have to move what you have here behind it, right? So you can bridge that gap. What we're trying to do is connect the dots to something more relevant, right? Like generally what I tell people to do is just do Austin, right? So you're on supporting one, you can link to all the cities down in the footer, whatever you're doing, right? That's the safest play. It doesn't always produce the biggest push, right? So this is a different way to kind of consider it is you can still use keyword centric anchors as long as you're not overdoing it like site wide. So now if you go back, so let's go from here to here, right? So let me get rid of this junk. So now we'll go to supporting two. So what would be a good anchor to use if we're going to the supporting two document? So this is what I want you to think about. Let's think about how Google is reading this, right? Without the dash,
Hmm.
right? That's how they're reading this URL, right? Because that's the folder you're on or the page, right? So if we have domain centroid, they know that is a path, right? So back behind it, what do we put? So we're going to get rid of this, but I just wanted you guys to see that visually. So we're going to go from here to, let's just say it's like the Dallas page or something. So Austin to Dallas, and we know that domain centroid, we're specifying this as the path, right? So when you read this, let's just write it out. So when you look at this, your domain becomes a placeholder. Does that make sense? Right. So this is the same thing when we abbreviate Texas I'll give another example here. So you do supporting two, and then this would cancel out, this would cancel out, and then you're going to move to Dallas, right? And you don't have to include that, right? So you can do it this way. You can use this as your anchors from here to here to help connect combos, right? So we want to connect this to these two, right? But you got to be specific on where you're going. right? So if we're going here, we're going to start with this, right? So this is that anchor. And then the thing that uses as a placeholder is the domain.com. So that's the part that gets canceled out. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What do you think, guys? Everybody following this so far?
Yes, the lowercase is intentional because we want to make it one dot, if that makes sense. The one dot that connects the two other pages together. Yes, this is what I use, Daniel. Start using these combos. Now, this is a 3-tier structure, but you can go deeper. You can go to 4 tiers and 5 tiers.
Nice.
Yeah, like generally, if I'm on the Centroid page, then what I'm trying to do is just connect it very simply, right? So, um, you know, give you an example of a structure. So you might have 3 layers here. So you have your domain.com. Right? So you have that, and you can also have like cities, right? So you can have multiple layers on here. So on the Centroid, it's very easy when you're trying to go after, domain Centroid because it's just one dot, really, right? So that's why you want to make sure it's your most important words that you want to rank for are typically one level down because brand keyword and keyword brand, you know, end up on this page from a search perspective. You can invert it, Daniel. So depending on how you want to structure it, you can reverse it. So if we come into here, like we can do centroid, right? So from going from here to down here, this becomes our placeholder. And obviously it's on the same domain. So you almost can ignore this because this gets put behind what you're doing. I'm trying to get you guys to see visually um, when I look at it, but you can generally get the idea. So you have centroid, and you have keyword 1, right? This is the anchor you can use to that to push that specific page, right? So down here, what's the next level needs to be done? We're going to Austin, keyword -1, right? So it kind of flows downhill. Now you can do the invert going the opposite way. Yeah, typically I ignore the placeholder because it's it's kind of automatically done by default. Like when you think of like long tail ones that you do, and you do like SEO, Austin, Texas, right? Like you can do a flat silo, But you have to pick in a flat silo scenario when you're trying to go after multiple keywords, you have to pick one as a placeholder, which generally I use Texas for, right? So you would do SEO. Yeah. So that's on a flat silo structure, but you have to pick one as a placeholder. So if I'm picking, this is the centroid I want to go to, right? Because this is how Google reads it, or a potential centroid. I know it's not what we call the centroid, but we're going to this specific document first, and then you want to append the relevance from where you're coming from, right? So you can do that to get more push out of your anchors that way. Yeah, a placeholder can also be foobar. That's why I like to use, um, like keywords in this sense as a foobar. Right, so let's insert the foobar into what this is, right? So we're going here from here, but what gets put in between, right? It's kind of the bridge between the two, right? So you're completing the journey. Does that make sense? I'll take that out so it's less
Yes.
confusing. So any questions on interlinking between pages? Lowercase brand. Which part did I put? Did I put it in there? Oh, that's just how Google reads it, right? Because you have to have a placeholder in there. I just put that in as an example, but it's not how I do the anchor. It's just the part that gets ignored, right? So it just helps you connect the dots. If you just know, they're still counting this, but this is going in between these two. And generally, you can see this on really big sites, right? Like, so if you have a category, um, let's give an example. Let's say SEO is my category. And then let's say, yeah, you can do placement within it. So wonder how far down the tiers we should go. So let's say you have a city, right? You could have Austin, right? So you might have an Austin folder, but let's say there's something that you're listing in here like a brand. So let's say Jimmy Kelley Digital is in there. So you guys can make longer strings if they're existing folders on your site, right? So you've done like basic optimization where um, you're just doing this one-off thing, right? So trying to go from a simple structure to a more complex structure, you can still do this, but what do you have to add? Yeah, you can do connecting anchors. Yeah, you need a placeholder for this, right? So you can you can structure this the way that you want, right? So this is another way to go after um, additional keywords, but it's not an easy structure to get down to start with. So you still have to put in a placeholder, right? So um, let's say that we had internet marketing service as one of our main things, right? So you could do, but this has to be an existing part on your website, right? This has to be a main centroid, right? But you can interweave things from other folders, but you have to structure it in a way where you're doing keyword, location. Well, I guess this will be a brand in this case, and then location, right? But these all have to be existing on the website. Yeah, you need an SEO folder, right? Which we would have. So if we wrote this out, and then of course we're going to have another one that is, right? So you can do, so these would be all the pages that you could have in this instance, right? So I can make it a one tier level as long as they exist down here, right? So I have SEO, we have SEO here, we have a brand defined, which is the brand. We have a location defined, which is a location. We've got our foo bar, and then that all of this can be within this. And this could be a very complicated structure, which is why we didn't start with this. Well, there can be reasons to put long ones in here, right? You may want to create a list of top, right? Like maybe you want a whole list. You probably have a list with just Austin and the brands that are in Austin that are SEO oriented, but maybe you want to make a top 10 list, right? Like this is a way that you can do it. So you usually do modifier keyword in the front, and then you specify what it is. So we're specifying that in the, well, that might not make sense from this perspective. The top SEO is the brand Jimmy Kelley Digital within Austin, FooBar, Internet Marketing Service. Yeah, that would be for more, you guys would see it more on directories, I would say. You know, when you guys go and look at like Yelp and stuff like that, you'll see that they have like a top 10 list. Like this is a way to kind of take the basics of what you know, but make the structures bigger. Yeah, you know, you'll see this. Go look at some websites and you'll notice that this, you'll see this in the wild on very big websites. So this is
Yeah, I was
almost
just
getting
thinking.
into like structure within a structure.
Yeah, exactly. I was just thinking what Kyle just said.
So all this time so far, we've just been talking about like a basic structure, right? Like, let's not repeat stuff. Let's be very specific on what goes where. Because when you get to this part, then you can start making it better. Like if you
Wait, what?
want, we can try to make a more detailed lesson on the complex structure if you want, but I don't want to break people's heads. Like if this
Wait,
gets
this is
too
basic? No,
confusing,
just kidding.
if this gets too confusing, just stick to, you know, what you're understanding up here, right? But this is another way that you guys can get more bang for your buck on different keywords. Yeah, essentially this would supersede your SEO, right? Because it's going to be your top or your best or your uh, most rated or whatever you want to put in the front, right? You may want to modify, maybe it's a plumber, right? Maybe you have a plumber folder and you want to put emergency here, right? So you can use that because this modifier becomes in front of an existing silo. And all of these exist to Google, right? Like this folder exists, this folder exists, this exists. You have a category, which is just a foo bar, right? Fill that out. And then all of that can be housed under a parent that is this. It's not, it doesn't have to be, yeah, I'm just giving you guys ideas of how you can take what you know and go into more complex stuff, right? Like some of you may not go down into this route, but the principles are all still the same. It just becomes bigger. But basically, you've got to
Hmm.
understand, you know, your locations of the folders that you're dealing with. And if you want, we can go over this in another lesson if you guys want to learn how to do the more complex stuff. But
Would you say they're
generally,
generally used for
you'll
larger
generally see
sites?
these, yeah, these are generally larger sites. Like, um, you know, you'd be looking at directories. You're gonna be looking at like Amazon does this. Um, I've seen a few news article sites do this. It's just not one of the common things, but most of all of them have in common is they just dominate for those buyer keywords. So we can go into stuff like this if you want to do that. So you can undo the anchor to the Austin page and you can invert it to go from your Austin to your keyword page if you want to reverse it. But go back through and look how you do these links. So do you guys want a lesson on this one on the next webinar? I could prepare something more in depth. Okay, well, I guess we're going to go into the complex structure.
Yeah, and I guess that somebody has left you a diagram. But how do you stop the locations Austin page from being the one that ranks? Did you see that image above, or did you already answer that one? Probably did.
Yeah, I saw that. You just would undo the ones that you have going to Austin and go back up the tree,
Okay.
right? You would go from Austin back towards your keyword page. You can also use tags. Well, just think about the anchor text from this, Daniel, and see if you can think of what the combination is. Yeah. Yeah, we can. Yeah, I'll go through a more complex structure for the next lesson then, so you guys can kind of understand how you interchange different folders and stuff. Because flat silos aren't bad because it becomes, you know, kind of your main thing that you're after. But they're handy when you're trying to go after those buyer intent keywords, I would say. Yeah, it does depend on how competitive it is. There's instances where you don't really need to go this far in depth, right? Um, but yeah, it's not necessarily that you have to do it this way, but I think it's good training just to know that, you know, you can go deeper than what you already built if you needed to. Not saying you'd need it in every case, but If you can rank for more keywords by adding a little bit more structure to your site, why not? Yeah, you can still do, yeah, Douglas, this is still, you can still do it like this, right? But you can collect more specific keywords. You know, if you think about your buyer intent keywords up here in this level, you know, a lot of sites want to go for best or buy or purchase or, um, you know, top 10 or, you know, that's usually there's a lot of buyer intent behind those kinds of searches because they're looking to buy, right? They're ready to buy, or they want to find the best plumber for their problem or the best pest control company for their solution, right? There's times that you would use this type of structure to just lock in those types of terms. Not saying it's the only way to do it, and you might not have to do it in every instance, but it's another way that you can structure. You can use tags for that as well, Paul. Yeah, you definitely can. But sometimes you go up against competition that is more steep. So it's better to make flat silos like this. So any other questions going on that you guys have? But it seems like you guys do want to learn the more complex stuff. So I'll get a
They
lesson
do.
together for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, they're pinging me privately also.
Yeah, exactly, Paul. Like you can make different categories for your existing keyword list, right? Like what if you had all those centroids, but you want to make a best of pages for each of the centroids? Like that's where you could use it. Not saying that everybody would use it, but you know, I think it helps people understand more. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, it's very similar to how you guys think about, okay, do I just go for the 3 point thing that I want one deep, or do you have to break it into two separate folders, right? Like some keywords you can go after the one that's just three keywords, and other times you have to break it apart. So it just depends on the competition of the keyword you're going after. But I feel like you guys are understanding kind of how to interchange and, you know, structure and things like that for the most part. Yeah, three-word entities are very similar, right? You look at internet marketing service as a entity, right? Like if it was super competitive, I don't think that one is in this case because it's going to be more of a local term. But you know, you can do it like that, or you can do it like this, right? Those are the two kind of options that you have depending on the keyword. You're correct, Daniel. It is, yeah, it's three different entities combined into one, right? But internet marketing service is just it's the local entity for most of the SEO type keywords that you have. So it's the centroid point of what Google has picked based on traffic of all the different websites, right? That's what that GMB category is. So you can go after just the 1 point thing, but generally they found that a lot of it, most local sites are probably optimizing like this. And you also could think about it in terms of how Google organizes, right? Like, what's the centroid for these? So let's do the centroid for this one. What's the centroid on this? Yeah, that's correct, TJ. The GMB category is an entity, but remember the points, right? It's a combination of three, right? So entity one, entity two, entity three. When you combine them together with uppercase, lowercase, lowercase, which is how they display it in maps, it becomes 1 point, right? So that is the centroid that they picked for that, right? So now let's think about how Google reads it. What is the centroid on this domain? Service. Good job, Paul. Right? Service is the centroid for this. Now, what's the centroid for this? It'd be internet marketing service. Right? There's two different ones. Now, there's not much wiggle room. How Google likes to read centroids, right, is it's going to be centroid, and then they're going to put in a keyword, probably SEO, right? So sometimes your centroid, if you're just mostly focused on maps, this may be the centroid to pick. If you're focusing on more organic rankings and things like that, you can still go for this because service and other keywords would make sense after the service. But if we did SEO under internet marketing, it may still make sense because from a map perspective, that's how it's written. Right. But they're going to read this first because that's the centroid for this domain or the one that you're building. That's what that first layer down typically is, unless you make it a foobar. So which one would you rather do, right? Like it depends on what you're trying to rank. 3 point entities can be good if that's all you're trying to do, or maybe you're trying to match Google business categories. That's totally fine. Um, but in other times, it might make sense to do this depending on the services of the site. Both will suffice. Well, you wouldn't repeat. Yeah, you wouldn't want to do it like this. These are just would be two separate examples for a 3 keyword entity combo. So don't think of this as being on the same site. This would be two different ways to build that silo. If I was going after maps, I'd probably do this. If I'm going after more than just that on a multi-level site, I'd probably do this. Or if it's super competitive, I'm going to do this. I'm number 1 for keyword on maps and by default Google search. If someone makes a search for a keyword and clicks website, it leads directly to my homepage. Is that creating Panda for my plastic surgery centroid page? Not necessarily. So what is your, so it's actually a good question. So what's the keyword that you have, right? So you have a search function in Google and you're probably looking for plastic surgery. In your search results, you have your GBP title, which is probably brand of some kind. Hopefully you guys are doing that. And on the GBP brand, it's linking to the website, which I prefer the homepage. Now, we're using plastic surgery as a search that goes and clicks the website, which is homepage. But what is the anchor that needs to exist on the homepage in order for that to not be a problem? Plastic surgery. What becomes the placeholder in this case if you do have this there? It'll be your homepage, right? So it's very good that you're kind of looking and zooming out from it, right? Because there's another layer that happens from a search to when you click a website, because this is essentially, um, kind of what happens, right? The website's becoming the placeholder, and you have to have that connection on there. So the homepage can operate as a centroid depending on how you've designed it, but there's other times that you said that this was your centroid, right? So let's do another search for fun. So let's say that this is in Google, and you do a breast augmentation, right? And let's say that this is a supporting page. Get rid of these. Okay, so we're going to do a search, and we're going to look at this. There's two options here. Yeah. It is funny when you think about it, just like zoom out, right? Like look at what's happening on the search page. So breast augmentation, can we click on the plastic surgery page with breast augmentation? Think about what happened on the homepage. Could we do it on the homepage? Well, yeah, you can, but what had to be in play? Because remember, on the maps, you're clicking on the homepage link, right? But what had to be there? Yeah, there has to be a link, right? So you may rank for the plastic surgery site, and you can actually put the clicks on here, but in your plastic surgery page, you need to be linking to your breast augmentation page, just like you would if it was the home page, right? Because plastic surgery, I would say, would be all encompassing. It wouldn't be uncommon for somebody to search for brand plastic surgery and then, you know, find their way to a breast augmentation page on there. But the same thing can apply. You can either go directly to this, or you can go to the plastic surgery page as long as there's a link to this page off of the plastic surgery page. But if there's not, then you can't. It'd be no bueno. Yeah. Yeah. Just go look at your internal anchors and make sure you're connecting it down below, right? So, like, complete the bridge, connect the dot, basically. Yeah, it fits in the centroid, right? Like breast augmentation. Same thing when we search for plastic surgery, we can click on the home page of the website as long as we are linking to the plastic surgery page with plastic surgery, right? So you might find some easy rankings there looking at your traffic. Yeah, so like if you're on here, generally you'll be linking back to your plastic surgery with plastic surgery, either via breadcrumb or a menu. But you always want to be linking to your centroids, like from every page of your site if you can. Yes, that is correct, Paul. Like I treat the homepage can basically link to every other page on the site with what that name of that page is. And generally, if you do that, because, you know, you always want to rank for as many keywords as you can with the GBP, but the only link that you have once really that makes sense is the homepage. So if you do the homepage, then that's going to, as long as you're linking there with the different searches that you get, like you literally could go into your analytics of your GBP and you can see what you're getting traffic for on GBP and literally create relevant pages off of your site and just link it from the homepage to that relevant page and watch what it does. Yeah, that's a good one. Sometimes you don't need traffic because it already has it. No problem. Just seeing if there's any other questions. We still have time if you guys want to ask some stuff.
Okay.
I mostly just wanted to show the link disavow today, but
Yeah, that was the main theme.
well, yeah, you could talk about the new templates if you wanted, Russ.
Oh yeah, there's new templates. Mic drop.
Would you?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm working on I'm really out in the middle of nowhere, like it should be. Okay, cool. Um, am I really? Paul, stop messing with you, dude.
He's just
Okay,
messing.
he's really getting quite uppity the last couple of months. We're gonna have to deal with that. Okay, just kidding, guys. Thanks for all of your patience. I just want to say, yeah, exactly, Daniel. There is through the Starlink, but there's all these storms coming through. You probably noticed the Midwest and starting to head up here. Um, I'll be giving you guys more updates, but Jimmy has been working significantly on several tech rollouts to improve upon many of the Localfy technologies. One of the most, I think, the greatly awaited one is the template function that will allow you guys to not have any questions about the structure. I mean, there's a few variables in there, but what we're seeing again and again, there's a couple of things. I'll just give you guys insider scoop. The main thing is there can't be anybody, either you guys or customers or any new Localfy staff members that don't know SEO and they're doing their best to serve customers. There's just certain things that can't be changed. And so now it's like I expressed to you guys a couple days back, these are Jimmy and the rest of the team, the development team is trying to make these as idiot proof as possible. And so yeah, that's the main thing with that. There's
I
other
think we're
aspects
turning
of the
him in.
technologies.
Yeah, it's like
Go ahead.
I'm trying to make him into like a Swiss Army knife for SEO stuff. Like there's other stuff I want to put in there. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, the structure and
yeah.
stuff is what we've been working on primarily.
I'm pretty much just a dream machine for anything Jimmy wants to use, which means that you guys will get to use it. That will include video upcoming and the rest. And it kind of had to be built from the bottom up. I mean, for the most part, Umair had to start over with Jimmy's spec on some of the things that Locify had. But I'm actually pretty excited about the rebooted and reloaded Locify, as is everybody else, because this is serious tech. And the stuff they had before had parts that we could use and other things, but it's been greatly enhanced and stacked. And there was no, what I like about this, I don't think Jimmy would necessarily say this, but what I like about it is that anything that was at Locify before Jimmy arrived has been reformatted, which is what I like. What is Daniel saying? Okay, did you? Yeah,
Well, and we
yeah.
were able
So
to make the changes on the old templates as well, which is nice.
yeah, again, so just so you know that everything is going to be positively affected. So the stuff for those of you, depending upon what you're using, those will be enhanced. And right now, I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with tech rollouts. Umair has given, deadlines, and Jimmy and Umair are, everybody at Locify is working on the rollout, and there's a deadline for the last day. So there's a lot. We're in the middle of a huge tech rollout, if that makes sense, and we're really excited about it because, well, finally it's built a spec the way that Jimmy teaches it and the way that we use it for our own customers, and I'm super excited. So that is, yeah. And I wanted to say that you guys are, you've been really patient, with that early tech, and you guys have been with us for a long, long time. So I'm just really, really excited. Now, with that being said, I can't really say anything more about that because I want to wait till the actual rollout is fully engaged and so on and so forth. So,
Yeah, there's
um,
some yeah, there's
go
some
ahead.
definitely some features that we're gonna add into it that I think will make it more flexible for SEOs to have fun with stuff. Like the Viagra
Yeah,
method, for instance. I'm gonna put that in there.
yeah, yeah. And that's one of the things that we were going to ask you guys. There's only like 4 people in the world that I know that know the Viagra method. But that being said, to keep this mastermind going past the originally planned, however many months we were going to do it, we're now looking at, since Jimmy's adding all these things, we're going to need to make sure that you guys understand how to use it. Even, we'll have specific tools we can use that he can work with you on. And I'm pushing to continue this group on past when the new tech is integrated. All of the knowledge that you guys have dedicated yourself to working with will be very applicable to tools that we can also give you. So that's kind of what's happening. And I think TJ said, so when is this happening? Well, we had our first internal company meeting about the development, and then we had another one the day before yesterday while Jimmy was in the air on the way back from Perth. Part of the reason that he was there is to, crack the whip. Somebody said earlier, there is a lot to be done, and it was just better that he be there in person, which is a great expense to him. It's exhausting to fly there, but was really well worth it. So right now we're looking at, today is the 8th. The old system goes off 100% by the end of this month, but there will be rollouts over the next 10 days, actually, slightly less than that. So I'll be informing you as I can. First, you guys will hear about it first before it even goes out anywhere else. And so that's really all I can tell you right now. But it's very, very cool stuff. Oh, and there's some changes too, like you know, we don't go to A records anymore. We go to C name, and there's some deep technical stuff with the pages and the technologies, which will be, and it's also not going to, it's not actually not going to be possible for anybody to blow themselves up. Like using, it would be hard. I mean, I guess it's possible in a few instances, but Jimmy's designed it so that you can't like do all the things that he tells us not to do. So the rule set and the contradictions and anything that could cause it to be a yellow flag is, for the most part, ironed out. And I'm really excited about that.
I mean, it's still possible for them to blow themselves up if they just put in duplication of keywords and stuff like that, but
True.
hopefully we can all avoid that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I've also staged these things to integrate well with the traffic system as well. So that way you'd be able to automate, getting traffic turned on to specific pages on it as well. So that is the goal of kind of the design behind all these. But I also like to just put in tricks for SEOs, right? Like putting the Viagra method in and want to do some other things that you can do with embeds and iframes and other stuff like that. So
Yeah, what I'm hoping to do for you guys is to give you a change log. If you guys are familiar with change logs, it'll just be a general outline of what it has, and um,
yes, Daniel, you'll be able to use 3 word entities. You need 4 word entities if you want now. Heck, you
which
can make a
is
whole flat silo if you want.
which for me is really cool because I gotta tell you guys honestly, you probably figured it out by now. Like anything past like 3 or whatever, I personally could never do. I just go crying to Jimmy. Like I can't
Somebody should just
think
go
that deep.
download people also ask and throw it in. That'll be all of their category
Exactly.
pages on there and just publish it.
That'd be cool. Yeah, just start stealing core questions by the thousands. No, that's good. And guys, I can't really tell you any more than that. Jimmy can probably tell you more if he wants to, but we're going to be giving you a formal rollout. So I just want to say thank you for your patience on that. That's been fun, and getting it out the door. And Jimmy, I know that everybody is super thrilled about this change. So even in the company. So
Yeah, you can do more keywords. You've got dedicated keyword pages. Um, and once I get to see like the input area, the interface, I might be able to show you guys like different things that I would use for it.
yeah, what I'm hoping to talk you into, Jimmy, is, which I'm sure won't be hard, is once you've signed off on the final release. Um, I know these guys are just going to love to have some like hands-on demos by you, by the maestro himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that if they
Oh,
choose to
yeah,
use these new
that's
templates,
what I was thinking. It's like
oh
it's
yeah,
good
it's going to be awesome.
for yeah, it's like I like Swiss Army knives. I don't like something that's just like, oh, we're just gonna do this. But there's so
Exactly.
many other cool things you could do with this.
I mean, just probably shouldn't be saying it. I don't know if it's okay to say it, but he's talking with you guys. I think we can. It's like you'll be able to use these if you even wanted to. You could use them for the same kind of function as PBN structures. You could use them for local. There's just the way that Jimmy's mind works is it should work for whatever he needs it for in whichever client situation he's in. I've just worked with them for years, and I just know that he likes to have a site model that works, on whatever dependency working with the client. So I want to spend more time in these mastermind sessions, showing you guys all those things. So that'll be fun,
Yeah,
like lots of
like
fun.
you could just change the seeding and stuff like that. Why can't you just like auto populate PBNs and stuff?
Hmm.
You throw the 301s in there, you throw the traffic in there. I think you can make a lot of cool stuff. So, anyways, I think it'd be fun.
Oh yeah, it's like I said, guys, it's everything is happening internally. It's definitely Locify rebooted. So um, to Jimmy's personal spec, that is super cool.
All right. Sorry, I was low energy today, guys. I'm still kind of dealing with the jet lag, but
Yeah, that's why I
did
wasn't
my
sure if we were going
best.
to have one today. I figured you might be too tired to have it, so it was speculative, but we really appreciate you making it, man. And we've been on for like an hour and 47 minutes, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to.
Well, and it's fun to get development projects done as well, I think. It takes a load off.
Yeah, you've been really, really pushing. I don't think anybody even knows how much you've been pushing it, like several different applications. And is there anything before we close that did we finish the questions on the link research tools? Does everybody know what's going on there? PJ, are you good?
Yeah, I think it's a handy
Okay.
tool. You could definitely sell it for an extra service, I think. So it's
And
my
you kind
favorite
of
tool.
have to like, yeah, Jim uses it a lot. And I got to tell you, like with the price of link research tools, it's not a cheap tool. I mean, they do have like some lower price points,
Yeah, it's like
but
when
it's
you get
probably
into
the most.
some of these projects, you have to use stuff like that. But it's my favorite for detoxing.
I was, I was watching you detox like, what was that last month? Like thousands of dollars worth of. It was a really big, like if you have really big clients that you're helping, you're going to have to get a paid account. And that's why one of the reasons you make so much for this is not obviously the buoyancy of the site, but tools like this you have to include them in your budget. So just remember that.
Yeah, that's for sure. You have to have toys to play with. Otherwise, SEOs just get bored.
Yeah, Danielle, I'll tell Camper you said that next time I see him. Just kidding. Oh.
Yeah, they do need it. Yeah, I mean, the problem is, I think in SEO, you just come across sites that, like, you just pick them up. You don't know the history on them. You do the same things you did on the other one. You tried to rank, and you find out like, okay, this isn't doing anything. It's like, well, go into penalty land. But if you're gonna do that, you shouldn't include it with your normal costs that you're charging them anyway. Like, get more money. Because
Yeah, that's
honestly, like
why.
right now, it's like it's definitely needed for everything. The website, de-optimizing the keyword on the website is like critical for so many things right now. So
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. Like you've done some detoxes for a few students for their included Keystone. Like that was really generous of you.
yeah, well, it's like the goal is to rank the sites, but when you have them that are staggered, I don't want them to walk away and not get any
Yeah.
benefit from it. So
Yeah. Bring back Traffic Hospital. Actually, we might actually have to do that next year.
well, yeah, we'd have to do an in-depth uh,
Yeah.
screaming frog with link research tools.
Can you guys give me a comment if you're interested in something like that? Obviously, mastermind members would get that by default, but if we had a training course or something like that, is who in the room today has an interest in a deep dive into modernized Traffic Hospital, 2023 post AI apocalypse or during the, would you have any? Yeah, some people. Okay, cool. TJ's like, not really. It's like, no more work. Well, not everybody has an agency. And if it's just for your own website. I don't know, Martin.
Um,
Have you ever had to detox your lingerie site? Just kidding. Sometimes they get spammed. Yeah, many times. Yeah, that's what I figured. Okay. Yeah, Kyle, I'm sure that you have to face that quite a bit. But all right. Well, guys, we should let Jimmy get some rest. Jimmy, thanks so much for showing up, even when it was not as easy as it normally is.
yeah, that's no problem. Need to get,
And
but I'll prepare a good lesson for the next one. We'll do like some in-depth structuring. You
yeah,
guys
this
can
is.
do it or not do it.
You mean the longer one, like the
Yeah,
larger sites?
we'll start doing the structure within the structure.
Okay. And we won't tell them at all about the giant directory sites or anything that is your next project. So we'll just not mention that.
Yeah, not
Okay,
yet.
cool.
Probably won't wait till the API is done.
All right, you guys, we will talk to you soon. You're awesome. We missed you. I would also like to say thank you to you guys. It's been, to be 100% honest, intimate, transparent, and vulnerable with you guys, it's been a difficult 45 days for us because we're rebooting the internal technology of Locify. Oh, shall I say, Jimmy and Umair are rebooting it with some team members also there. And I also know Chris over at Locify has been helping a lot. Everybody on the Locify side, we appreciate as well. So we may have had a huge gap between our last webinar, but it was worth it. And you guys are still in the fold, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much, and we'll check in tomorrow.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
Jimmy. Bye bye.